Hi, my name is Staci Solomon, and I am the Vice President of Programming of the Miami Canes Community, and I want to welcome you tonight on behalf of the University of Miami Alumni Association's Regional Engagement Office. Our Canes communities represent more than 190,000 alumni domestically, and though we hope we would be meeting in person, we look forward to engaging you, getting to know you, and providing you with incredible virtual programs until it's safe for us all to meet in person. So we're thrilled to have alumni, family, and friends of the U from all over the country joining us here via Zoom and Facebook Live. So if you're on Zoom, let us know where you're joining us from in the chat. And those of you on Facebook Live, tell us where you're joining from also. During Women's History Month, I'm very eager to hear from our distinguished panel of incredible women excelling in their respective fields who are going to share their experience with us and who generously serve and give back to their alma mater. But before we get started, we have a few questions that we'd like to ask you via a poll that you're going to see, and your answers will help us paint a clearer picture of you, our audience, and where you are all tuning in from. So if you're watching us on Facebook Live, please type your answers into the comments, and we'd love to hear from you guys as well. So there they are on the screen. Let us know where you're from. Okay, here we go. Is this your first Cane Conversations? I don't see anybody voting. Oh, here we go. Okay. Oh, well, it looks like there have been many people that have participated in Canes Conversations. And it looks like the majority of our viewership here is from the Southeast, although the Northeast is moving a little closer. Wow, I'm glad to see there's a lot of people that have participated before. That's awesome. And let's see what kind of industry you guys represent. It looks like we have a lot of educators and trainers, some in science and technology, a little bit of hospitality, sports and tourism, government and public administration, Let's see where else. A little bit of business management, entrepreneurship, finance, marketing, and real estate. No architecture and development today. Okay. Let's see. No human services. No law, public safety, corrections, or security. Where are my fellow lawyers? It looks like education and training is winning out there. The Southeast are the winners. And there have been many, at least half of you have been to a couple of our Canes conversations. Okay, great. Well, thank you guys. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get started with the program. So as a University of Miami Law School alumni myself and a 26-year practicing attorney, mostly as corporate counsel with CVS and its predecessor companies, I understand that a successful career for a woman may require overcoming obstacles that are unique to women. Work-life balance and the desire to achieve career advancement do not always go hand in hand. So hearing from like-minded women professionals on how they achieved success in their fields is both enlightening and inspiring to other career women and provides much needed insight to those women just starting out in their careers. So let's hear what our panelists have to say, and let me go ahead and introduce them. So our first panelist is Jennifer Del Toro, who graduated in 2011. And she is an analyst with the Office of the Deputy Mayor for Public Safety and Justice. And she is the immediate past president of the Washington, D.C. Canes Community. So Jennifer currently works in the Washington, D.C. Mayor's office, focusing on public safety issues. And her current and previous roles within the district government, she has played a role in planning and coordinating the public safety response plans for high-profile national security events like presidential inaugurations, State of the Union addresses, the papal visit, and First Amendment events. So happy to have you here, Jennifer, with us. And okay, so let's get to our first question. Jennifer, can you tell us about a time or experience when you experienced failure in the workplace, and how did you learn from that experience?
Thank you, Stacy, and I'm also very excited to be here and be on this panel, and thank you to the University of Miami Alumni Association for giving me this opportunity. Failure happens all the time. The one story I want to tell is about a time when I had interns, and it was one of the first times that I had interns, and I really failed them. I did not know not just not to ask for help, but how to receive help. And I think this is also something uniquely like females deal with too. Not being willing to accept help. So I learned from that experience, it's more than just asking for help. It's being willing to accept help. It's also being willing to communicate when you need help rather than blaming somebody else for not being able to help you. And then as part of that experience too, I also learned that we don't take the time to do development. We think development and investment just happens on its own. Investment takes time, and having someone like an intern is an investment for myself, for the team, and for the intern themselves. And I have since had several interns. This happened several years ago, and I always make time now for that person. And I try to communicate more effectively with them. So it comes down to not just being willing to ask for help, but being willing to receive help. So that was a huge lesson for me.
That's wonderful. And I'm sure those that intern for you are very lucky and appreciate all the guidance that you've given them. So during your time on campus, I know you were involved in multiple student activities. So how did these extracurricular activities on campus prepare you for the workplace?
I was involved in what some people would think is too many student activities. Definitely a full plate. Going into college and the University of Miami really prepares you for this. There's the professions that you think exist, and then through your coursework, you learn that there's a slew of other professions you didn't even know existed. So, for example, doctor, lawyer, accountant, these are things we know about growing up, but like public administrator or an administration law judge. These aren't professions or careers that you grow up saying you want to be until these options become available to you through coursework or through meeting other people who serve in these sort of professions. And being a student leader on campus and being involved in multiple student organizations taught me about leadership, but they also taught me about roles and responsibilities that exist within organizations that I didn't really realize was a role that someone played. It was just very simple, something as simple as that. And then I also really learned about bureaucracy and that I really like process. I was the chair of the Council of Student Organizations, which is just a fancy word for saying like OPM, the Office of Personnel Management, and the person who compliance for student organizations. And as boring as that sounds, I found it thrilling. I loved everything about it. Making sure student organizations had constitutions and were giving people a platform to provide feedback on how the organization was run, and making sure that they were happening in a public setting and they were being responsible with how they used their money. I found that very exciting, and I think that took me down a career path in government. And I was also really involved in the Association of Commuter Students, which, looking back, explains my role in advocacy and being an advocate for a minority group on campus, and giving those people a voice. And one of the other organizations that really changed my career path was Alternative Spring Breaks through the Butler Center. I had the chance to go to New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina and be part of the recovery, and that really took me down a path of service in addition to leadership. So I think every single experience that I had made me reconsider or consider my professional paths moving forward, but then provided me with some basic conflict resolution skills about working in groups and in office dynamics that I think have really helped me excel in my current workplace. I consider myself pretty young, and seeing myself grow through organizations trajectory wise faster than other people my age lead me to think that my experiences on campus are directly the reason why I am able to maintain or how I maintain myself professionally, and the kind of wisdom that I bring to the table, I think is because of that leadership experience that I had on campus.
Jennifer, thank you so much. Those are very interesting pointers, and we'll talk about them more during the question and answer session. So now I'd like to go ahead and introduce Marcie Hibbs. Marcie is a 1999 graduate, and she is currently a financial advisor with Edward Jones Investment, and she is the president-elect for the Broward County Canes Community. Marcie is originally from Fort Lauderdale, and she earned her degree in sociology and sports medicine and has been working in the financial services and insurance industry for over 2 decades. In addition to being an honoree of South Florida Business Journal's 40 Under 40, Marcie has a passion for serving others, and she most recently began volunteering with Feeding South Florida, assisting their COVID-19 efforts for people in need in the Fort Lauderdale community. So welcome, Marcie.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here.
Thank you. So tell us, what are the best examples of positive change in the workplace that you've noticed since COVID?
I think one key thing that I've noticed is in the past, working from home was almost like a dark secret. There was a point in time when it just was something that you were supposed to hide, and the house has to be completely quiet and no one must know you're at home. And it's so refreshing that in this post-COVID era, now it's not uncommon to call up a Fortune 500 company and hear a dog barking in the background. I think that this change is really positive, especially for women, because it gives employees, including many women, the autonomy and the freedom to get more done in oftentimes a more efficient manner even, and which in the end results in better service for customers, and at the same time, just being more efficient within their homes and their households as well.
Mhm. That's so true. So tell us some ways people from the financial industry are making a difference in the world.
Well, the financial market in particularly has weathered COVID extremely well. As a matter of fact, today the Dow was at an all-time high. The Dow hit at one point, I think, over $32,000. So, you know, the financial market has done very well. And I think that for people in the financial industry that are doing well and have done well, it's not just a duty, but it should be our pleasure to help others by giving back and serving. You know, I was taught service at a very young age. When I was in 6th grade, my mom would wake me up and say, okay, we're going to feed the homeless. And not with a church, not with, you know, consent forms or anything. It was just me and my mom, you know, getting up at 5 in the morning. She drove to downtown Fort Lauderdale. We had packed and made peanut butter jelly sandwiches and put them in two loaf bags and just walked around and handed out the sandwiches to anyone that wanted them. And that just really fostered, you know, those ideals of, if you have, help someone else. You know, since then, Jennifer had mentioned alternative spring break, and I started smiling when she was talking about that, because my alternative spring break at the U was in Washington, D.C., and it was another homeless venture for Washington, D.C., and working with the homeless there. And, you know, also my company has done a lot. They're big supporters for the Alzheimer's Association and raising money for that and giving back in that aspect. And as you mentioned, some of us from the board have gotten together and gone to downtown Fort Lauderdale and partnered with Feeding South Florida and helping get food to people that who have been negatively impacted through COVID. I would say one of the most impactful ways to make a difference is by giving back to your alma mater. And particularly with this month being Women's History Month, it's the perfect time. You know, there might be some young lady that currently doesn't have the opportunity to attend this university, where your donation might be just the difference that can make in her life and make her able to experience this amazing university and get this amazing experience. I know there's a way to, if you're interested in supporting specifically someone, you know, you say you want to support someone from Broward County so that you know it's coming back into your community. You can go on, I believe it's canefunder.miami.edu and look for Broward County and then look for scholarship. And you can contribute and know that it's going to a student from Broward to help them attend the University of Miami. I'm sure someone might post the link there if anyone has trouble finding it. But, you know, that's a great way to give back.
Your words could not be more true. And that lucky person that receives such a wonderful scholarship or whatever the funding source is, and they have the opportunities in front of them, you never know what they could do with that path and where they might go. So your words really are true. So thanks, Marcie. And we'll talk more about this as we get to the question and answer, but let's go ahead and meet Dawn. So Dawn Minkow is a 2012 graduate and is currently the assistant editor at the Orville, and she is the president of the Los Angeles Canes Community. Dawn is a television editor and a proud Los Angeles Cane, and some of her most recent credits as an assistant editor include Netflix Grace and Frankie, which I really liked, and BET's 20s, which I'll have to see. So how do you break into an industry that's all about who you know, Dawn?
Thanks, Stacy. So jobs in scripted TV, or at least in post-production where I work, are never posted online. So you really need to know someone on the inside who's going to pull for you, but it's not as transactional as you might think. And it's also not as simple as going to lunch with someone once and thinking you're going to get a job from it, because they probably have a dozen people in line ahead of you. So when I wanted to transition from being an editor in unscripted TV to being an assistant editor in scripted, I was shocked at how, even though I was willing to take a lower level role, I just couldn't break in, and it felt very defeating at times. But I knew that I had to make it my job to meet the right people. So I went to about 2 to 3 networking events a week for an entire year. And I became true friends with the people I met, and I would see those same people at event after event. I worked on my relationships over the course of that whole year, and I made it clear to those people that I wanted to work in scripted. So at that point, the friends who were well connected in the scripted world would think of me whenever they received word of people looking for a scripted assistant editor. And plenty of the people they forwarded me to rejected my resume because I didn't have scripted experience. So it wasn't just a switch that turned on, but eventually a friend who's a very successful editor, who I happened to introduce myself to at an event one time, had a fantasy football buddy who was looking to hire someone, and he passed me along. And that person interviewed me, gave me a chance, and ended up taking me with him to multiple shows as his assistant editor. We have a great relationship today. So it may have seemed like a lucky situation, but in reality, I worked my butt off to create that opportunity for myself and be there when the opportunity arose. So it is pretty empowering to know that you can become the person who knows everyone. And now I'm the friend who puts people up for jobs. So it's kind of cool to be on the other side of it. That being said, though, I still have a ways to go. Now I have to do it all over again to work my way up to being an editor. So it really is a lifelong thing.
That is very exciting. Much more exciting than my career, I'll tell you that. So thanks, Dawn. So how did your experience at UM help you pursue this career in TV?
My junior year, I joined Off the Wire, which is the comedy show on UMTV. I joined as a producer, and I learned so much from that show, just things I never could have learned in a classroom as much as I loved my film classes. We made a show every other week with sketches and guest segments and musical guests. We even produced a 10 or 11-minute musical one year, which was a huge undertaking. And we just encountered so many experiences and issues and had to figure out how to move forward and get our show on the air by the deadline. And it really forced me to think creatively on my feet. And it was the best kind of preparation for the real world that I could have possibly asked for. But also on the topic of extracurriculars, I have to give a shout out to Jennifer and Marcie, because I've been sitting here this whole time with my alternative breaks mug. I also went to New Orleans on my first of 3 UMAB trips. And that alone was just so life-changing. It gave me a lot of perspective. So I think that shaped me as well and contributed to where I stand now in my career.
I'm going to suggest that to my college-age son. That sounds like an awesome idea.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, seriously. So, okay, so so thank you so much. And let's talk about this more as we get to the question answer session. I'm sure there'll be tons of great questions that others have for you. So let's go ahead and welcome our last but not least speaker, Deb Moskowitz. So Deb is a 1994 grad, and she is managing partner and shareholder at Quiantos, Prieto, Wood, and Boyer, and she is president of the Orlando Canes Community. So Deb is the managing partner of the Orlando office of her firm, and the firm is the largest minority and women-owned law firm in the United States. And Deb is the woman ownership. She also operates Fat Cat Gourmet Foods, which is a gourmet hot sauce and condiment company with her husband, which I find extremely fun. So Deb, tell us, how did your time at the U help you succeed in your career?
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for the warm introduction, and it's great to be here. I could talk all night about how my time at the university helped me to get where I am in my career today. I was very heavily involved in the working with the Miami Hurricane student newspaper. And it was a great experience because I learned the importance of getting a job done under a tough deadline. And while now I don't necessarily answer to an editor, now I answer to people in black robes and clients. It was a really fantastic experience. one other really amazing experience that to this day has helped me get where I am, I will always give a shout out to this man, Dr. Bruce Garrison. Taught a great research course in school communication. And I have used those skills, I still use those skills to find information out about witnesses, parties on the other side. You know, I've always been able to use those skills to be as prepared as possible to handle my cases. And just wonderful experience that you just can't get anywhere else.
That's wonderful. And so are you involved currently with any programs at the university geared towards helping our next generation of business leaders?
Absolutely. And, you know, we had amazing programs that were available to us when I was at school at the U, but to say that those programs have expanded exponentially would be an understatement. My husband and I, as you said, operate Fat Cat Gourmet Foods. And we are pleased to work with the School of Business, specifically the entrepreneurial program.
Oh, yeah.
And we have students that work with us many different semesters where they help and actually get real life experience working to help the company program, to help it market, forecast, all of these different things that you just can't get anywhere else. Just, you know, fabulous real life experience, and they're getting to see in real time how their ideas are impacting this business. So it's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, I'm looking at the chat while we're talking, and you have a lot of Fat Cat Gourmet lovers, I think. So, do you have any advice for new lawyers who want to try cases, and how can we position ourselves to get that trial experience, which isn't always so easy to get to?
Well, you know, in this day and age, it's harder and harder to get trial experience. And I would strongly suggest, you know, all of us, and, you know, it's been such an awesome evening to hear how Dr. Butler and his programs inspired so many of us. And, you know, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about, you know, how he instilled, you know, a love for service in me as well. But, you know, I would certainly recommend, as much as you may not get the paycheck that you're looking for immediately after graduation, but don't shy away from taking a position with the state attorney's office or the public defender's office. That trial experience is priceless. And I tried my first case within a week of working at the state attorney's office, and that experience, that trial experience, jury trial experience, is available for you. You just have to take it. And you know, while certainly I wasn't making what my counterparts were and classmates were making at the time by taking that position, it was invaluable experience to be able to say when I went to the next level that I had trial experience that a lot of other people were waiting 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 years before they were stepping foot in the courtroom.
Yeah, and that is so true. Being a fellow lawyer and a graduate of the University of Miami Law School, I can attest to the fact that taking that path and choosing perhaps a lesser paid profession initially pays off in the end, and the training is invaluable, and it really is, it's truly irreplaceable. You can't get it in any other venue. It's a rare firm that allows you that kind of experience so early on in your career, where you really have to just jump in. So for those that are interested, I highly recommend that you think about that career path. So with that being the case, that you started in the state attorney's office, what was the most interesting case you ever got to try?
Well, you know, the one thing that when you're working at the state attorney's office, you know, if things didn't go your way when the jury came back, you had a feeling that they might be back, you know, a couple months down the road and you'd get another bite at the apple, if you will. But in the defense, I'm in civil litigation on the defense side. And while certainly criminal cases are extremely important to public safety and to the public good overall, when you're in civil litigation, you're dealing with, you know, companies and in many cases profits, and There are lots of people's jobs that can be in the balance depending on how the jury comes back. One of the last most interesting cases that I tried was a civil murder case where it was a highly televised case. The facts were splattered, and it's probably not a good choice of words, all over the news locally, and it was an employee who had been murdered by her estranged husband, in the break room of this facility, and he left not to get too graphic, but left the knife in her back and walked out the front door of the building. There were, major emotions on both sides, and it was a great honor to be able to deliver the result that we did for our client.
Well, that is definitely an exciting case. I doubt many people will be able to offer the same experience in comparison. So I definitely cannot. Okay, so now the most important question that I have to ask you for all of us hot sauce lovers. How do you come up with your flavors for your hot sauce, and what is your favorite flavor?
Well, oh man, it's so hard to reduce it to just one, but we love my husband's half Chilean, half Israeli, and he grew up with all of these beautiful table sauce recipes that had been passed down from generation to generation in his family. And so many of our recipes are based on those table sauces. And, we pulled lots of beautiful flavors from lots of really amazing cultures. And, we have a lot of fun with the hot sauce. We also develop a lot of our flavors at, of course, tailgates. And, we have our friends serves our research and development team and see what they think. Is it good? Do they like it? What does it need? A little more salt, a little more sweet? Is it too hot? What do you guys think? And it's so much fun, and it's a great business to be able to do something that we enjoy so much.
Oh yeah,
I think
that's your side hustle.
Yes, absolutely. And I think one of my favorite flavors, it's really hard to limit to just one, but I love our puri puri sauce, which is our take on a South African piri piri sauce. And it's caramelized onions, garlic, tomato, ginger, and chilies, and it's just killer on anything grilled. It's just good stuff.
Oh my goodness, you're gonna have to put that in the chat, because I'm gonna make sure I take note of that. Maybe it'll enhance my not so good cooking skills. Well, thank you for sharing the inside tip. And I'm definitely gonna go online and order a couple. And hopefully I'll get an invitation to the tailgate where I can taste them in person. That's my next goal.
Come on.
Okay, I'm gonna take you up on that. So anyway, so Deb, thank you so much. And I hope that this information has sparked some questions for everybody in our chat. And so we're going to now open it up to you all and the audience to submit your questions using the question and answer feature. And if you're on Facebook, please go ahead and submit your questions in the comment section, and we'll try to get through as many questions as possible in the time that we have left. So I'm going to go ahead and pose my first question to all four of our panelists. And Deb, why don't you answer first, since you're up on the screen. Is there a particular leader that you look up to, and why?
I have to say that one of my favorite leaders, and she's not really what you would consider to be a traditional leader, but one of my favorite leaders of all times is Julia Child.
Oh,
She was not ever afraid of failing. She wasn't afraid of failing spectacularly on live TV. And she made it clear that she loved what she was doing, and she had fun every day. And I just have always admired her spirit. I certainly admire her skills, but I've just always admired her spirit and just how she carried herself and, treated other people, and how she was able to lead people by not necessarily making them feel like they were being led. And I've always admired her for that.
That's an awesome answer. That's a great answer. Dawn, you want to go ahead and tell us who your inspiring leader is and why?
Sure. There are several women actually who I know personally who have started social groups specifically for women in post-production. And I just appreciate their leadership so much. They take their own time to help lift up other women. And if you asked me when I graduated college at 21 years old about the importance of having a women-only career-oriented group, I wouldn't have understood why it was necessary. I would have thought like, oh, we're just like the guys. But there are actually a lot of workplace issues that we deal with that men don't. So it's just been invaluable to have other women to lean on and learn from. And I really look up to those particular women in my life.
Thank you. That's a great answer. Marcie, you have a leader you want to share with us and tell us why?
Well, it would have to be my mom and just everything that she instilled in me and, you know, giving to others and helping people. And when I started first grade, she used to write on the bottom of my folders, only the best is good enough. And she would say, you know, I don't care if you're, you know, doing an exam or if you're taking the trash out, you do your best and everything you, and as long as you try your best and you do, you know, the utmost, she's like, I'm happy. So she would be my biggest inspiration.
And that's an awesome message to give to your kids too. Do
Yeah.
the very best you can, and then you can't do much more. Jennifer, do you have a woman leader that you want to share with us?
Not one in particular, but similar to Dawn, I think I've been very, very fortunate to have, in my workplace, there are a lot of female leaders or women in leadership positions. And that's always been the case since I started my career in Washington, DC. And it's allowed me to take a little bit of everyone with me as I've progressed in different stages. And I'm thinking of one example right now. She's a communications director, and in the stage of my life where I'm like, how do you cook? How do you work out? How do you have kids? How do you do your job well? Like, how do you do the bare minimum? You know, when it comes
True.
to like who you look up to, I think it depends on like what aspect of your life you're looking for inspiration for. So that's just one example of that in my current workspace that I'm thinking of. But I've been very, very lucky to be surrounded by female leaders to provide good examples to me, and also learning about what I don't want to do when I'm put in a position, or even learning not just from what they do well, but learning sometimes when my style might be a little bit different. Sometimes knowing the not part helps shape who you are and how you are inspired as well.
I think that's awesome. So we do have some other questions for everybody that I'm going to go. And Jennifer, since I have you on the screen, I'm going to ask you the first question that was posed for you. So what is the hardest lesson you've learned about being a leader?
My idea is not always the best idea. That is the hardest lesson, not because I'm full of myself, but you get to a position where you want to find a balance between asserting authority and using your skill set and your knowledge, but recognizing that there are other people on your team who have better ideas, and empowering the people on your team to do that. I think for a really long time, I thought leadership meant I got to call the shots. That is not the case. I do not get to call the shots as a leader. It's about empowering other people in your team to be the best versions of themselves, so that collectively we can be the best team. And so that was part of it, and a skill that I had to learn in order to get there was listening, not hearing, but truly listening and absorbing and using that skill to empower other people. That is the hardest lesson I've had to learn.
That's good advice, though, to be a good listener, not just to hear. So Marcie, we have a question for you. So what is the most common misconception regarding the financial industry, and how has your industry changed within the past 10 years?
One of the most common misconceptions, and especially given the height of the market, is that it can't sustain higher growth. It gets to a certain point, and every year for like the last 6 or 7 years, the market hits an all-time high, and everybody says, "Oh, that's it." They're braced for the bubble. And then the next year it goes a little bit higher, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's too high. That's it. The crash is coming. The crash is coming." And we've kind of approached a new normal. If you look back at the last 10 years, we haven't had a long-lasting bear market since 2008 was the last time that has really happened, where there was over a 20% drop for a long-lasting period of time. So and that's 13 years ago. So we're entering a new normal where, there's going to be continued volatility, but the market can go higher as we saw today. So that's probably the biggest change that I've seen is it's no longer to this certain set of rules that we kind of were used to in the past.
So keep investing.
There you go. You said it, not me.
Okay, so let's see. We have a question for Dawn. So Dawn, what is your best advice to those who might find networking in the entertainment industry intimidating, which I'm sure is most people?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be intimidating. The best advice that I received at the first official networking event that I attended in LA was that your peers are your best network. You're far less likely to walk into a networking event and meet somebody who's trying to hire someone and get a job that way than you are to have somebody at your level put you up for a job. So in this business where we're all kind of freelancers or contractors, we all inevitably have to turn down jobs when we're booked on another project. So when you turn down a job, it's an opportunity to ask the producer or whoever is coming to you to ask them if they'd like the resume of your friend who you think would be a really good fit. And we can't all take all of the jobs, so we need to help each other. This is how people get work. So the takeaway is don't look down on networking with people at your level, even if it's not necessarily a level you want to be at. But the other part of this is that your network doesn't end when you get a job. Sometimes you're going to need technical help in a pinch, and you need those trusted people in your back pocket who you can text. Like, I have this thing due in a minute and I have no idea how to do it. We've all been there, and you need those people. It doesn't end when you get the job. But the best part about looking at networking in this way with your peers is that it can be fun. You go to networking events and you're actually just going out with your friends. And it doesn't have to be all about awkward small talk and handing out business cards like we're kind of led to think it is before we actually get out there into the industry.
So open up your world to whom your network might be.
Absolutely. Can come from anywhere.
Yeah. Okay, so a question for Deb. How do you prove in a predominantly male-dominated industry that you have leadership skills to move your career forward?
The best advice that I can give for that is be yourself, be authentic. I think that in many cases, we as women feel that we have to aspire to be some specific, we have to look a certain way, we have to talk a certain way, we have to carry ourselves a certain way or aspire to be a particular ideal. And I think sometimes we have to worry more about being ourselves, because especially in the legal industry, it is still to this day, we're working on it, but still to this day, it is quite the male-dominated industry. And you have to, it all boils down to relationships and trust. And if your partners feel that they can trust you, they're going to elevate you and give you that leadership position. If your clients feel that they can trust you and that you're going to tell it to them, straight up, this is the good, this is the bad, this is where the warts are, then if they have that comfort level with you, they're going to want you on their cases. And why it's just so critical to be yourself, because if you're so busy trying to be something else, then somebody may not feel that they're able to trust you. And these relationships all revolve. I mean, the minute that your client or your partners or the judge, somebody doesn't feel that they can trust what you're saying, then you're lost.
That's good advice. So we have another question for Jennifer, and I'm glad to see this question. So Jennifer, what prompted you to join the Washington, D.C. area Canes, and why did you choose to take on a leadership role?
The truth answer for why I joined is because I didn't know anyone. I didn't know not one person in Washington, D.C. I moved to D.C. blindly. I had never even been to Washington, D.C. I was just like, I want to go to this grad school. I got accepted. I have 2 weeks to move there. So that is the answer.
That's a good answer.
And then why I chose to kind of go from that to a leadership role. I wanted to pay it forward. I think sometimes we move into, even if we're used to networking in very specific types of networking circles, kind of like what Don said, expanding your horizons about what it means to network. You can network at a football tailgate, you can network at a professional event. I wanted to understand what the options were available to me if I were to network in a leadership role as part of the university. How can I have a say in the alumni experience when it comes to the university? How can I have a say in the alumni experience when it comes to when they move to a new city, and what resources and opportunities are available to those alumni when they move to an area? So it was kind of selfishly a way to network within something I felt comfortable in, which is the university. It's an easy conversation to start since Miami's so small, but also to pay it forward, because I think a lot of the experiences I had socially and professionally at some of the DC Canes events have helped me thrive as a resident here and choose to lay roots here.
So that's wonderful advice. And I'm hoping that those that are on, who are joining us tonight, who are not involved, will take that good advice, whether it's just because they want to meet other people or because they want to find a new path to get involved. I'll have to say that, at least from my own perspective, being involved in the Miami Canes and other areas of involvement throughout the U, I find it extremely fulfilling. I've met awesome people. I've gotten to do very interesting things. I've gotten to know all sorts of new things about the university. And, the university is ever growing. There's all kinds of new facilities and new programs and all kinds of things that people might want to be a part of, that by being involved, you get to learn about firsthand and you really get to experience firsthand. So I highly encourage anybody who's thinking about joining to please come join us in whatever venue you're at, whatever city you're in, whether it just be as a participant or as a leader, we'd love to have you. So our last question is for Marcie. Marcie, what is the best piece of career advice you have ever received? We're going to all wait with bated breath.
No pressure. So I'm actually going to cheat and give you 2 of the best pieces of advice that I've ever received. So you get a bonus.
Okay.
This is a BOGO. The first one is being for the other person. There's a book called Know What You're For. And it's not just about realizing your purpose in this world, but it talks about being intentional in putting others first and being for others. It touches on 2 examples, one being the Ritz-Carlton. And when you leave there, they say, thank you. It was a pleasure that I could serve you, or I'm so happy to serve you. And, and then Chick-fil-A kind of also is in that space too, where they say, it's a pleasure to serve you. I think just focusing on the other person is key. And when you put your client or your customer first, or whoever it is that you're serving, they're pleased. And then in turn, your company naturally does better, which usually translates into you personally doing better as a whole. So I feel like when we stop focusing on ourselves and getting to that next level, and we shift the focus more on helping our customer or that person in front of us get to their next level or their best level, I feel that everything else will flow naturally from there. So my second best advice would be 3 words: strength in vulnerability. And Deborah touched a little bit on this about being authentic. And there is a power in vulnerability and the concept of strength and weakness. You know, it still amazes me that when I'm flawed and imperfect, I'm so much more relatable, I'm so much more likable, and I get so much more accomplished. You know, as Deborah mentioned, when you're authentic, you develop trust. And when there's that level of trust, you get so much more done. And the other person also puts their walls down as well. And you just have a more productive interaction.
I think that those are 2 very wise pieces of advice. And really, you know, are wisdom beyond most people's years. And I think that if people just took those 2 pieces of advice, they'd still have, you know, they'd really accentuate their own careers by following, you know, your thoughts. So we do have a couple more minutes left. I have a couple more questions that were brought in through the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and let me ask Deb, if you have any advice for recent graduates of the University of Miami to make meaningful connections with the alumni to expand their professional network. So what would be a good way that a new alumni could reach out to a network?
Oh my goodness, they need to get involved with their local chapters, the Alumni Association, as soon as physically possible. I know Orlando has at least once a year networking. You know, not only do we do game watch parties, not only do we, you know, celebrate all of our amazing sports teams, but, you know, we do at least one networking event per year. And we are such a tight-knit group that I know that we have worked together. If heaven forbid someone's been laid off, we've tried to connect them with other people in their industry to get them back on their feet. You know, so many of these amazing ladies have talked tonight about, you know, what has had to occur to get that, you know, the proverbial foot in the door to get started. Don't be afraid to ask for help. You know, a dear friend of mine, you know, says it's not a nation, it's a family. And I take that to heart. You know, no matter how many canes there are, there's somebody who's willing to, you know, to do what they can do to help you. And don't be afraid to lean on your local alumni chapter when you graduate.
I think that's excellent advice. Okay, so I think we have time for one more question. And let's say, Jennifer. So what qualities do you think make for a well-respected leader? So that's a very specific thing, to be well-respected.
I think it goes back to what Deborah said about trust. I think, like, even if you're a tough leader, you're respected. If you're willing to show your flaws, like Marcie said, you'll be respected, because then you can see your reflection in your leader. The reason why I think this one's tough is I've had a lot of different types of leaders, and they've all had quite a different leadership style. And for the most part, I respected most of them. And I think it all came down to trust that they had my best interest at heart, trust that what I was being asked to do was the authentic assignment, or and trust that we weren't going to be led astray. So in my specific case, that we weren't breaking the law when we were making decisions to do things, right? I know that sounds pretty basic, but knowing that there's a strength in character and in your leader makes you think like, no, why would we ever break the law? That's silly. That's not something I should consider, because I know better than to think that that person is willing to do that. So I think it all comes down to trust, but in all those subcategories of trust.
Well, thank you very much. So I want to thank each one of you, Deb, Dawn, Marcie, Jennifer. It's been a wonderful experience getting to work with you all, getting to know each of you better, getting to take some of your words of wisdom, which I'll bring back to my own office and share with my colleagues and those that report to me. And I really do appreciate it. And I know the university appreciates you all taking your time to spend with us, both in preparing for this and tonight. So I know that the audience has, and I have learned something new, and we appreciate you sharing everything with us. But before we close, we have one last poll, if you all wouldn't mind, with just a couple more questions that will help guide us for our future events. So they're going to go ahead and put that poll up. And I'm going to thank you guys in advance for taking the time to answer. So the first question is whether or not you enjoyed tonight's event, whether or not you would recommend this to a fellow Cane, and what other topics would you like to see featured in the Cane conversations. Yep, I see everybody's answering. I appreciate this. You guys are awesome. And I'm glad to see that it was well received and you guys had a good time. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Thank you so much. And I just want to thank you for taking the time tonight to join us. And I hope that you guys will join us in our next event. I want to just share our upcoming spring event with you all. So it's called the Experience. It is on March the 30th. It's actually an all-day event. It's an interactive educational series featuring thought-provoking presentations and lectures from university faculty on relevant subject matters taught in the classroom. And all alumni will be invited to come back and relive the classroom experience virtually through intellectually stimulating lectures on subjects across a variety of disciplines, showcasing our faculty and their vital research. So I have to say that I will be very happy to go back to college if it's not virtually. And if you guys would just be sure to keep an eye out, we have a monthly electronic event digest, and that event digest email is sent out on the first Tuesday of every month and contains information on all the upcoming events that are happening at the U. So I want to just be sure, I think we have it all listed on the screen here and how you can register. So for all those that are interested, I just want to thank everybody so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the program. We look forward to seeing you again at our next virtual program. And go Canes!